Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crime Family. I'm your co host, AJ, and I'm here with my sisters, Stephanie and Katie, as always. And if you're watching the video version of this, I have a little bit of a different, my surroundings are a little bit different. Had to improvise on the spot due to loud festivals with loud music. I'm improvising. So yes, thank you so much for joining us for our finale episode of season 6. And the case that we're going to be discussing for the finale is the ongoing P Diddy case, the trial that's ongoing. And this has been pretty big news over the past year for sure, and slightly before that. So we know that a lot of the listeners are probably going to know at least something about this case, maybe not all the details, but you'll kind of know the gist. So we're not going to spend a super ton of time going through everything chronologically. And honestly, it is still unfolding. Like the trial is ongoing as we speak. So obviously there's no conclusion to this case. We will probably update you, even after the season finishes, as the trial unfolds even more. But so we're really gonna obviously I'm gonna set the stage and tell you kind of like the need to know information if you're not really familiar. But then really it's gonna just kind of go along with us, or we're just gonna kind of talk about different topics about this case, anything that was of interest to us or anything that we wanted to bring up. So, he doesn't really need any introduction, but P. Diddy, or Sean Diddy Combs, he was a pretty big deal in the hip hop world or the music world. He was a mogul. He had a bunch of hits in the music industry. He also had a ton of brands. Like I think he had like a liquor brand and a clothing brand, and he had this whole enterprise basically. But he's no longer making headlines for this type of impact. He's facing a federal courtroom under investigation for many things, including sex trafficking, abuse, and racketeering. And so just a little bit of background. So Sean Combs, he was born in Harlem. He rose to fame in the early 90s, and he was the founder of Bad Boy Records. So he was actually involved in bringing the notorious B.I.G. and like Faith Evans and all these really big like hip hop or R&B legends. He was involved in like their careers, and later turned his brand into a business empire. Ciroc Vodka, like I said, was his alcohol brand, and he had like a TV network, apparently Revolt TV, which I had never heard of, but apparently it was a thing. So behind the scenes, though, there were kind of whispers of sort of Diddy's, actions, or like the underworld of Diddy and all of the stuff that had kind of been like whispers throughout the industry and like even in maybe news like for decades, but nothing really that had ever come up that had like made front page news or like anything that was based in fact. It was all sort of like rumors. And now, since a lot of this stuff has come out, there's like old TV interviews that are being like relooked at under a different sort of lens, because now that we know what the allegations are, a lot of those interviews or the comments that he would make or that others would make are even more kind of gross or like just crazy. So, so in November 2023 is really when the snowball really happened and it started to get out of control for Diddy. So in November of 2023, singer and model Cassie Ventura, she actually filed a lawsuit against Diddy. And in that lawsuit, she alleged more than a decade of physical abuse, sexual coercion, and human trafficking. According to the complaint, she was drugged, raped, and forced into sexual acts with others, sometimes at quote unquote freak off parties that were hosted by Sean Combs. So Cassie, she was really known as like just Cassie, as she was a singer. She had dated Sean Combs for I think over 10 years, and he was involved in like the start of her career. Like she had signed to his label, and so she was like a new artist under him, and then they began dating. And so a lot of her allegations go back quite a long way. But in November 2023 is when she filed this lawsuit, and like I said, the snowball effect just started from there. But within 24 hours of her filing this lawsuit and it becoming public knowledge, the case was actually settled. But even though it was settled, the damage was already done. I believe Diddy went on and he released like a public apology because he didn't deny that he had done it. But he just, apologized for it and thought that that would be the end. But that lawsuit really opened up the floodgates. And
didn't he like he denied like ever physically abusing her and stuff. And he said that wasn't true. But then that video came out of him like actually beating the shit out of her, and then he apologized and was like, "Oh yeah, I was in a bad place." Like, just make that clear that he did try to deny it and is a liar.
Oh yeah, okay, maybe that was the timeline, because I guess the lawsuit came out in November, but then the surveillance footage wasn't released until like I think months later, and then when the footage came out, he couldn't really deny it anymore at that point because it's literally on camera. So then
I'm sorry, like I don't even know who this Cassie girl is. I've never heard of her in my life. You said she was a model or a singer?
She's a singer, yeah.
Yeah, she's like an R&B artist.
Yeah.
No idea.
She wasn't like a household name, but I guess if you listen to that type of music, maybe you would.
Yeah, if you're like an R&B fan, you probably know her. But then I can't even name one of Diddy's songs either. Like, that's how much I don't care about him. Like, I don't care about his music. I'm not a fan. Even less of a fan of him as a person now. But yeah, I didn't know much about him to start with, so just want to put that out there. Not a fan.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't really a fan of him either. I mean, obviously, we knew who he was. He's a pretty like A-list celebrity or a big household name, but not really the type of music.
Yeah, against my will. Everything I know about it was against my will. It was just like, oh, there's P. Diddy. I don't care, but it was like in your face all the time. So
yeah,
it's like cool.
Yeah, and so the lawsuit is filed in November 2023, but at that time there was no video footage of anything. It was just the lawsuit that became public knowledge. And then, like you said, Katie, he, I think, denied it at the time, like physically abusing her or anything like that. They settled out of court, and then it was months later, I believe in April or May of 2024, when the video was leaked to the public. And we're not going to show the video on this because it's been shown a lot of times and it's pretty disturbing to even see. So we're not going to show it, but I'm assuming if you know about this case, you probably have seen it. But it's like a physical altercation that takes place in a hotel lobby. So you see Cassie, she's like leaving a hotel room. She's like walks down the hallway to get into or wait for the elevator. And then you see Sean Combs run down the hallway after her, and then he like grabs her by the hair, pulls her to the ground, kicks her, drags her back to it's pretty crazy. So that's the video that got released in May, and then Diddy apologized after he realized that he can't deny it anymore. It's literally on video. And so one thing that is interesting to note, though, like there's a lot of I watched a lot of videos on this case, and something that comes up a lot is they say if Diddy had settled the lawsuit before Cassie and her attorney had the chance to file the lawsuit, so like if they had settled it before it became public knowledge, then none of the following indictments would have really happened, potentially, like all of the stuff that came after that, because it wouldn't have really been in the news if they had just settled it quietly. But it was because he didn't settle it before, then they filed it, and then it became public, and then they settled it publicly, and then it started like all the smoke sort of started, and then more investigations, which led to the eventual downfall.
He probably was thinking like he's been getting away with everything for so long that it's just, this is like another thing that he doesn't have to like acknowledge, and he'll just get away with it. So he did it to himself.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like I feel like he didn't really care about it being, well, maybe being public, but like, because if you know who he's kind of arrogant himself, so it's like, oh, I got all this media attention, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, no, you got it for the wrong reasons. But I was like, what kind of like what Katie said, it's like, I don't know, I just feel like he's just such a scumbag that I feel like he knew about it, but he didn't want to admit it because he had such a high ego that it's like, oh, that wasn't me type thing.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, and it'll come out too that like people knew about what was happening, and he would pay a lot of people off just to like keep quiet. So he figured this would just be probably another one of those things where he would just like pay her off, and then that'd be the end of it. But no, it wasn't.
Yeah, and in some of the videos that I had seen about this case, a lot of people were saying that he really just thought he was untouchable. Because when you get to a certain level of power and influence and money, and there's probably been stuff like he's had lots of times before where he was able to get out of things, or he never really got consequences for things. So that was sort of ingrained into him of like, well, it doesn't really matter. I'll be able to spin it, or I'll be able to get out of it, or people will forget, or whatever. So I think that was probably the mindset he had. obviously he didn't realize that once the floodgates were open and that lawsuit became public, people started to really dig. And all it really takes, as we've seen in many other cases, where all it really takes is one person to come forward, and then other people feel courage to come forward after that. And then the stories just start coming out, and like people pile on him. And so eventually it's just, like I said, a snowball thing that just kind of gets out of control, even for him, who was so used to being able to control everything that would happen. So
it's like,
oh, go ahead.
So I'm like, it's like most celebrities, they have all this power and they think that like money can just buy everything and pay off people, but like kind of like Jeffrey Epstein, it's almost exactly the same thing. It's like all these people think like, oh, like nobody's gonna care, like I'm just gonna pay them and everybody's gonna shut up about it. But like in reality, people should not get away with crap like that. And obviously he didn't. But anyway,
well,
it frustrates me
the trial's still
these
going,
people.
so who knows?
No, I know, but like it just frustrates me. Like these people who have all this money, it's like they think they can just like pay people off, and it's like, well, that's not how it works in the real world.
Also, I think we should have a disclaimer, like this is all alleged, and we're just like talking about what's already out there, and he hasn't been, proven guilty yet, so he's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah,
just say that.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Obviously, like I said, the trial's still ongoing, so he could be found. Well, getting acquitted isn't really being found innocent, but whatever. It's still ongoing. So he's denied all the charges. So he's pled not guilty to everything. So it really is just allegations at this time. So everything that we're going to be saying, like Katie said, is stuff that's already out there. There are some topics I want to touch on later that may be a little bit going into like conspiracy theory a little bit, but we're going to like preface it and tell you that. Just kind of going based on what's out there. And everything that we say is our opinion, of course, based on the allegations that are out there. So that is our disclaimer for that. So in the following weeks after this lawsuit had started, more than 5 civil suits were filed, and allegations started to come up, including rape, sexual assault, revenge porn, sex trafficking, all of this other stuff. And these weren't one-off accusations. They described a long-standing culture of abuse, surveillance, and control. And so then things really took a turn when Diddy's house was raided by the FBI. I believe that was on March 25th of 2024 is when the FBI just raided his LA home. And footage showed armored officers leading young men from his properties. Sources say that there were hard drives, NDAs, firearms, surveillance footage was all seized from the property. Investigators allege that Diddy ran a coercive network that involved private flights, controlled drug use, and sexual exploitation across state lines. And so by May of 2025, so I guess then there was like an investigation that had started and all these other charges came out. He's facing racketeering conspiracy charges, sex trafficking by force, fraud and coercion, transportation for purposes of prostitution. There is a initial 14-page indictment. So if you read the full indictment that actually came out when the charges were official, I'm obviously not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to read just a couple of sections from that, just so that you can get it in the exact words of what the charges are and the nature of some of these serious allegations. So I'm just going to read that. So the grand jury charges. So the overview, Section 1, for decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. PD, a.k.a. Love. That's literally what it says, word for word. The defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. So Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global. Corporate entities in the Combs business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. So, at all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse towards women and other individuals. The abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. As part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. At times, Combs and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. And there's just one more section here that I wanted to read. So Sean Combs used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. These employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, and other close associates, acted as Combs's intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. So that's just a snapshot of the indictment. So basically, it's saying that obviously Sean Combs as himself was very powerful and rich, but he couldn't have had all of this stuff happen necessarily without help of other people that were working under him. So like his personal assistants, people who just worked at many of his enterprises. And part of the racketeering charges, I believe, is tied to using some type of enterprise or corporation for nefarious means. I believe that's in a nutshell what racketeering is, or like it's also like using funds from that under false pretenses for criminal activity, but under the front of like something else. So obviously we're not lawyers, but that's my understanding. So that's why the racketeering charges, which I think legal experts have said are notoriously hard to prove. Like racketeering is a hard charge to prove. So that's interesting that that's in there, but that just kind of is a snapshot of what the indictment says, and really is just touching the surface of all of this stuff. Now, there are lots of articles out there, and even from the trial, people who have testified at the trial so far with even more incriminating and disgusting and gross details. So I don't necessarily know that we need to get into all of that, but I mean, of course, we can talk about some of the stuff. What are you guys' thoughts, I guess, just from those sections of the indictment, or just anything else that you may have researched about this case that are in relation to the charges?
I think it's insane of what all the charges that he's been allegedly accused of. Like, it's like there's a huge list there. I had no idea until I started researching this case that all of those things that he was going to be charged with. Plus, to be honest with you, I didn't really know what racketeering was until I read it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, it's super scary that all of this went down without anybody else's knowledge, and that it went on for so long, and that it, like, I don't know, it just terrifies me.
Well, a lot of people knew about it, but just not the public, right? Like, it wasn't like,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, people knew about it, but like, still how it went on, and all these people just thought it was okay or didn't think it was okay, but didn't say anything for years and like years. It's like,
what? Yeah, I think like
bizarre.
One of his personal assistants or something like testified that on her first day or something, he had threatened her. Like, she had worked for like one of his rivals or something before, and once he found out that, like, he threatened to kill her or something if she ever went back or like whatever. And it was like he was like totally serious, and she like figured he was serious. She felt like he was serious, and she was just like, well, he's such a powerful like influence in the like this industry that she just stayed working for him because it would be a good opportunity. I'm gonna be like, I don't know, like maybe like rethink your, I don't know, your life strategy if somebody threatens to kill you on your very first day of work, but you just like let it slide. I'm not blaming this person, but I mean, it's just crazy how much power. Like, I'm just trying to show how much power he had over these people. And also, like, I guess the prosecution is using like a pattern of behavior strategy to show kind of like the RICO charges and stuff like that. And this is similar to like what they used in the R. Kelly and the Harvey Weinstein trials, apparently, and which got them convicted. So I feel like this is like a strong strategy that has worked for big people in the past. So hopefully it's going to work for him as well if he's guilty. So that's just like an interesting point there.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know, a lot of times, like, I think there's so many people who want to be in the music or television industry, or they want to be famous in Hollywood. So I think a lot of times, if it's someone who's really young, who is told by this person that he's their key to like success and fame, then I think sort of like dangling the carrot a little bit of like fame, I think it just does crazy things to people. Obviously, not blaming them, and obviously if you're really young and like if you're entering Hollywood and you have no sort of, you're just naive, right? So like you get into that world and you think like this is your way to fame and fortune and stuff like that. But also it's kind of
it's not also just like, oh, if you quit, then you don't have this like powerful guy behind you anymore. It was like, if you quit, then I'm going to isolate you, and like you're going to be threatened, and like I'm going to make it worse for you than it was before, and like your career is basically over. So I guess it's like, why risk it? You might as well just stay and get your career helped rather than like ruining everything you've worked for up to this point, right? So it wasn't just like you're going to take that piece away. It's like I'm going to ruin everything. So you can see how it was like very manipulative, and people don't want their lives ruined because of this. So, I mean, you can understand.
Yeah. And it's like once you like once you get involved with him, it's like you really only have two options, like leave and have nothing, like have all of the crazy stuff that he'll probably try to do to you, and also you'll have no career anywhere. Or if you stay with him, it's like, yeah, he'll do all this crazy stuff and whatever, but you'll maybe have the chance of like some type of fame or fortune, right? So it's like, to the person in it, it's like, well, both options are quite terrible, but if I leave, I have nothing. I'm going to go and I have no chance ever. Because you have to remember, P. Diddy was like, we didn't really care about him, but in the Hollywood world, he was like pretty well respected, I think. He was really powerful. He had all these enterprises. So really, like, if you piss him off, you're going to have no chance, really, because he has so many connections and he can pretty much have you blacklisted from the entire industry. So if you're someone who's like 19, 20 and you've worked so hard up to that point, and to get this dream and it's so close, that's a crazy, like, amount of, you kind of feel like everything's coming true for you that you wanted. So it's really hard. It's not just easy as saying, well, just leave. It's not really an option at that point, especially at the point where you're already in it with him for however long you've been in it with him. Like, and any connections that you have made are through him too, right? So like, you can't just leave him without completely burning everything else that you have. And
it's like a cult.
Yeah.
He built this cult and this like narcissistic like character that like you can't destroy me or like bring me down because I'm the only thing that's a good thing that's ever happened to you type thing. It's like such a cult thing to do, in my opinion.
It is very similar to that. And I think like someone that used to work with him, I think it was like one of his assistants, like named George Kaplan. And I think he had to like get this plea deal where he was like exonerated from any wrongdoing if he was a witness. So, because it was like he definitely knew about what was going on and kind of like participated. He eventually quit working for Diddy because it just got like too much. But like, if he didn't have this deal, he probably could have been charged with things as well. And like, yeah, he came forward and like said he witnessed the abuse that Diddy like had, like the physical abuse against Cassie and stuff like that. So I mean, I feel like, yeah, once you're in it and you've like maybe participated in some of these things, like unwillingly at first, maybe, but now like it's kind of like you are guilty as well in a way, right? So you could see why that would even be like, I'm not coming forward because I'm going to go down too. I'm going to go down with the ship if I say anything. So yeah, it's like a huge thing. It's crazy.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, people are going to look out for themselves, right? Like, if they can be implicated in it, they're not going to be the one to blow the whistle. Most people, I would say like 9 out of 10 people aren't going to blow the whistle on this thing when it's going to mean that they get charges or they end up in prison or they whatever, right? So a lot of times it's like easier for people to, even if they do leave or they're like able to get out of that world, they're still not necessarily going to come forward, because also the person at the top, being Sean Combs, he's smart enough to know that he's gathered sort of like this collateral sort of stuff. So like there's a lot of allegations too that like there were some also high like A-list celebrities who were like involved in some of these like freak offs and like all of this illegal like the sex trafficking and like the drugging of these women and stuff, and like would record some of these. So like, I guess the implication is like, well, that's the way that the celebrity's never going to come forward, because if there's video evidence of it, or if they're involved, like, they're not going to be in line to incriminate themselves, right? And if he has video evidence of it and can prove it, like, that's just going to be detrimental to their own career. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing, it was like, I think we said that he pled like not guilty, and he could be, facing, decades in jail, but he could get like a plea deal, I guess, if he kind of reports who else was involved in this and like higher ups and stuff like that. And I don't think he's like said anything yet, but I don't know if this is actually going to be a deal. But do you think that he'll kind of try to save himself and just rat out everybody that's been in this with him? Or do you think he's just going to be like, I'm going to go down and just protect everybody? I don't know. I feel like he doesn't have that kind of morality, but we'll see.
No, I think he's going to rat everybody out and take a plea deal and save his own ass.
I mean, I feel like if he was going to do that, he would have done it already. Like, he's in trial, like in the middle of his trial. Wouldn't he have done this months ago if he really was going to do that? I think he's arrogant enough to think that he can get off. So if he can get off and not have to also throw everyone else under the bus who may, I mean, I feel like he's not going to have a career in Hollywood regardless, but I feel like if he burns all of his bridges with all these other celebrities, he's definitely not going to have any career. I think he's arrogant enough to think that he can get off and it'll all be fine.
Yeah, that's true. That ship might have sailed. He might have had the opportunity to do that and he didn't. And so now it's kind of too late, even if he wanted to. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the timeline on that.
Or he can wait. Or he can wait and maybe Donald Trump will pardon him like he's done some other celebrities.
Oh my fucking God. I didn't even think about that. I feel like, yeah, that's what that might happen. He's probably like buddy with Donald Trump.
No, that show, what's that show called? Stupid reality TV show with the Christies, whatever the hell their name is. I can't think of the name right now.
The Chris.
He pardoned them from jail.
Yeah, of course.
They were like fraud.
I don't even know anything about this. What happened to them?
Anyways, they got charged with fraud and like other charges. I can't remember what they all were because I don't pay attention to that type of gross gossip.
Calling them celebrities is even a stretch. They're not really celebrities.
But anyways, he pardoned them, so now they're getting out of jail. They both were one was supposed to spend 12 years, the husband, and the other one was 7. And he pardoned them, and now they're getting out. So like, if he knows Donald Trump and is like goody with him, like whatever, then I think that could be a possibility. But I don't know if that is or not.
I mean,
I hate that so much.
I think, and I don't want to go too far off topic on a tangent, but I think, that crossed my mind too. But I also think it also there's a huge portion of Donald Trump's supporter base that are part of, like, I don't know if you guys heard, like, the QAnon conspiracy theory of like this huge like child sex trafficking ring. And I feel like if Donald Trump were to pardon this guy who's been charged of like sex trafficking, and some of the allegations and some of the victims were actually underage at the time, I feel like that's not going to go over well necessarily for people who support Donald Trump. That portion of people, like, they think that, like, obviously, I mean, rightfully so, that like pedophiles are like the worst of the worst, obviously. And so, but anyways, but QAnon take it like super far, like crazy, whatever. I don't want to get into that, but like, I feel like there's a huge portion of his base that's not going to like the fact if he were to pardon like a sexual abuser, who has been credibly charged or accused of that, right? So I don't know, but I don't really know what goes on in Donald Trump's mind, but he could, whatever. I think he does whatever he wants, so I don't think he cares. And also, does he really need to have his supporters anymore? Like, he won the election, so he doesn't need them anymore.
I feel like he does stuff just to like piss people off and like get in the media. So if this is something that's gonna like make a big uproar, he's gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Just to be an ass.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if that were to happen, I mean, I do think I think his career's over. I don't know what to call him. Sean Combs. I don't want to call him Diddy because I hate him. So maybe I'll call him
Sean Shitty Combs.
Yeah.
P Shitty.
Yeah, that's P Shitty. Yeah, that's what we'll call him. So But I don't think he's going to have much of a career either way. But if he does get pardoned, I mean, he's just going to go and he'll be out of prison, which will be horrific. But like, I think his career is over. Obviously, like I think all of his businesses have gone under, or they will shortly. Like anyone, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's naive to think. Like maybe he'll rise and come back from. Like I don't know who would ever like buy anything that he ever does.
Even if his careers are over, like he has enough money to just like live comfortably. You know, it's not like
true.
Like he's gonna be poor and like having to, be a, cashier somewhere. He's like gonna be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, is he gonna have a lot of money when like all of his businesses go under? And I mean, I guess he's made a lot of money. He might not make any more money past what he's already made, but.
Yeah, well, so I mean, he has like enough money already, probably, right? And it's like bank account that he can live off that. Doesn't need any more income.
Yeah, true. And people have said, like, people who talk about this case, like experts have said, like, even if he does get acquitted from this case or pardoned, worst case, he is going to be tied up for decades with civil suits because there are hundreds of civil suits that have been filed against him. So even if he gets off on these huge main charges, I think, he's still going to have a lot. So he could lose all of his money through civil settlements and stuff like that.
Yep. Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, let's hope he gets found guilty and doesn't get pardoned. That would be the ideal scenario. Because it would be like a life sentence, I believe, for him. It would be like several decades in prison. And he's already like in his mid-50s, so he wouldn't be getting out, I don't think, at all.
Yeah, he's 55.
Yeah. So as I said, the trial is ongoing now, and it's pretty big. Like it is people are also saying, like, who talk about this case, like it had the potential, or it could, to like completely destroy a lot of really big Hollywood names. Like, because it's not just him. There are lots of people who were associated with him that could end up getting their careers. Like there's a lot of like speculation and like conspiracy theories out there of like which celebrities. So we don't necessarily have to talk about that, but like the implication is that it's like a wide net of people. So like some of the biggest names in Hollywood or in the music industry could end up being like, ginned up in all of this, and who knows, it could like completely like restructure the power of Hollywood and like who's at the top and stuff. Potentially, I'm surprised more people.
I mean, if you're gonna be gross and disgusting and like think you're just gonna get away with things, like you should be called out. Like personally, there should be like a list that gets published, and like these are all the shitty people involved. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet. I mean, there's been, like, I watched before the trial had started, like, who, I also hate this guy, but Piers Morgan. Do you know who Piers Morgan is? So he has like a talk show, I guess, like a panel show where people come on and they talked about Diddy a lot. And so he does have guests from like all perspectives. Like Piers himself is kind of pro-Trump and kind of a loser, but he does have people from like every side on for his panels. And like he did have this one woman on who was like talking about like Jay-Z and Beyonce and how they were like involved in this and stuff like that. And like I think there may have been like a lawsuit from that. I don't know. So anyway, but the implication is that there's huge famous people that are potentially going to be thrown into this, and I'm surprised they haven't been kind of named yet. Like for sure named.
Yeah, and we're not going to name them off because that's not our. Like, we're not going to be responsible for those people to lose their dignity in life. So,
all about is like just allegations, right? Like right now it's Sean Combs who's on trial. He's the one who is facing these charges, and like everyone else no one else has been charged in this. So we're not here to say who in Hollywood is involved, but like it wouldn't be surprising if like some of the main most famous people that you can think of probably would be eventually maybe caught up in this or whatever. So, and also we don't know what's happening behind the scenes either, of like how many people have like, there's a lot of people who have lawyers and stuff that can do things behind the scenes. Yeah, like I have we have no idea.
Just the top of my head, I have like a dozen people that I can name that was part of his ring of disgustingness.
Yeah, and it's really hard too because also it can also go the other way too, right? Where like there was like people. I don't know if you guys heard about this. I don't know if you're not following it, you probably wouldn't. But when they were doing jury selection for the case, there was like a document that was leaked about like there was a list of like 30 or 40 celebrities that like jurors were asked about Like, do you know who this person is? What's your opinion on this person? And like, but there's no context provided. Like, it wasn't saying like these people are involved. It's just like these are names that may somehow come up in the trial, but it might not be for like nefarious reasons. It could just be like that person is named because Diddy was at a party that they had or something, right? Like, it's not saying that they are involved, but like very famous names, and you can go look up the list online and stuff. But like, I don't know, like the actor Michael B. Jordan, like his name was in there, but I think it was because during the trial, like some of the testimony that Cassie gave was that she started dating, or she was like communicating with Michael B. Jordan, and like he was somehow like, that was like how his name came up. Like after she left Sean Combs, she dated Michael B. Jordan or something like that. And so whatever. But anyway, so
and also just because a celebrity went to one of his parties doesn't mean they have anything to do with it, right? Like this, and all this like happened like during the after parties, right? It'd be like a party, people would leave, and then some people would stay and like do this sketchy stuff. But even if you didn't know like you could have even been at the after party not knowing what was about to happen, right? So, and then you could have bailed. But I mean, people didn't come forward. That's an issue as well. But I mean, just because you were there and in photographs with Diddy doesn't mean you had anything to do with it, right? Just because you happened to be at the wrong place, wrong time, doesn't mean you were like knowledgeable about what was happening. So I feel like that's important. Like people are like forgetting, like, oh, look who's in the picture with Diddy, and like, look who was at a Diddy party. But it's like they really didn't have any, might not have had anything to, or any knowledge of it at all. So
yeah,
whether that's naive to think that they wouldn't, but I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, like he would have parties, like huge parties with like hundreds and hundreds of celebrities there. And he probably didn't, like, not every celebrity who ever went to a party was involved in this, obviously. But he probably had like a selected few that were regular like participants, perhaps. But like 90% of the people at his parties either like weren't involved or had no knowledge that this, because like you said, it was the after party, and who knows, it could have been an after party, and it could have been a party within the party. Like, I don't know. And also, as if you're like a singer or an artist or whatever, and you maybe witness something, Diddy was still, like I said, he was super powerful, super rich. So like your career would be over. You come out against him, he's going to destroy your career. He's going to sue you. Like, I just feel like for most people, it's going to be easier to just say nothing, even if you know what's going on, which it doesn't excuse it. But like, you also have to, in their minds, are thinking like, well, I also have to protect myself.
But also like witnessing this like sex party or whatever, that doesn't necessarily, that's not illegal, right? It's not illegal to have like a big gangbang. So you could have seen that, but just not know the context behind it, right? Like people are doing drugs, doing whatever. Drugs are legal, but that's besides the point, right? I mean, like, you don't know the backstory of what's happening, right? This is like just a big party of people, having a gangbang, and whether you're there or not and participate, that's a different story. So yeah, you don't know the whole. You don't know this like sex trafficking. You don't know those people were like flown in from somewhere. You don't know that some people are there against their will. They're like too high to like know what's happening. You don't know. You might not know that it's like all being videotaped. Like, there's like many layers of this. So yeah,
that's true. So like, I think like, you have like a list of hundreds of people who were like in the parties, and then it would like, out of those people, 90% would be people who knew nothing was happening. Maybe the ones who did know something was happening, like you said, didn't know the full context. So they knew there was like some sketchy shit going on, but like they were just like, well, if they want to do that, whatever. Because like, if they don't know the full context of it, it's like not my thing, but whatever.
Yeah. So, and it's not illegal to have like 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Like, that's weird, but I mean, you're allowed.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, one of the things that came out from like the FBI raid was like, they confiscated 1,000 bottles of baby oil, because apparently that was like, they were used in these like freak offs that he would have. And these were like common things. He would have them like multiple times a week or like whatever, I don't know. But sometimes they would last for like days at a time. It was like crazy. If you go into like the details of this case, like it's actually pretty wild. Some of the gross and crazy like details of it, which again, we don't have to go into that. If you're following this case, you probably already know about it. But yeah, it's like, it's wild. And then for his attorney, I believe his attorney came out and said, well, like, he buys in bulk. He goes to Costco and he buys stuff in bulk. So, that's why he has that. It's just ridiculous. And also, fun fact, his attorney, I don't know if it's still his attorney now, but at the time all this was happening, his attorney that was doing a lot of interviews about it was Mark Agnifilo, or his name was Mark Agnifilo. And if you recognize him, it's because he was also Keith Raniere's attorney, the NXIVM guy. So like this guy like likes to defend a lot of really horrible people. So just keep that in your mind. Yeah. Those are the types
and he's never won. So
yeah, true.
He hasn't won? Oh my God.
No, I mean he was defending Keith Raniere, who lost, and he's in prison forever. I don't know his other clients. I just know it was Keith Raniere because he was also doing lots of interviews when the whole Keith Raniere thing and NXIVM was happening and defending a lot of his behavior too. So it's just this kind of, I mean, like, he's not going to be your go-to guy for like factual information. Obviously he's Diddy's attorney. He's not going to, that's his job literally to defend him.
Yeah.
So whatever, he's just doing his job, I guess, whatever, but let's hope his streak continues and he continues to lose. So yeah, it's just like there's a lot of layers to this, and like I said, the trial's still ongoing. The trial began on May 8th of 2025, so literally just a couple weeks ago, and there's a lot of like YouTube channels and Court TV and Law and Crime Network, like they follow this case day by day, or the trial day by day, because it's happening. I don't know how long it's scheduled to last.
Dateline does too.
Yeah. So if you listen to any of those podcasts, like you're going to get really detailed information about like every single detail of testimony. But Cassie Ventura, she was the prosecution's first witness, of course. So she described on the stand years of physical violence, forced threesomes, a surveillance culture that left her in fear. And then there was someone named Mia, who that's like a pseudonym, or that's like a fake name, a former assistant who claimed that she was drugged and raped multiple times, with Diddy allegedly paying her a monthly retainer to stay silent. So just crazy. Those were like the big moments from the trial. So far, there was also someone named Capricorn Clark who testified about being kidnapped and threatened after trying to help Cassie escape. And the rapper Kid Cudi, he's also involved, and he testified because he recounted a confrontation that ended up with his car exploding in 2012. And there's allegations that Sean Combs was behind that attack. So I'm actually going to read a portion of this BBC article that kind of talks about that in kind of just an overview, and I wanted to make sure I kind of described it right. So I'm going to just read it right from this article from the BBC. So Kid Cudi, whose legal name is Scott Mescudi, testified for about 2 hours on Thursday.
Cudi.
Oh yeah. Okay. Whose legal name is Scott Mescudi. Testified for about 2 hours on Thursday, answering questions about his relationship with Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who testified last week. So the Star told the court he also believed Combs was involved in a break-in at his home. Later, Combs' lawyer emphasized that there was no evidence of Combs' involvement with either. Mr. Mescudi was among several witnesses who testified Thursday as the third week of the trial ended before the long Memorial Day weekend. Combs is facing possible life in prison if convicted on charges of racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has denied the charges and pled not guilty. The rapper separately denied accusations in a barrage of civil lawsuits that echo some of the claims made in his criminal case. So, I lost my place. Mr. Mescudi told the court that he and Miss Ventura dated for a few months in 2011 after Combs asked him to record music with her. Mr. Mescudi testified about a series of incidents involving Combs. The first happened in December 2011 when Mr. Mescudi said he got a frantic call from Miss Ventura, who said that Combs found out that the two were seeing each other. Then Mr. Mescudi testified that he took Miss Ventura to a hotel for safety, then got a call from a mutual friend who said Combs and another person were inside Mr. Mescudi's Los Angeles home. Mr. Mescudi told the court he immediately got into his car and drove to his home, calling Combs on the way. Combs answered the phone, said, quote, "Expletive, are you in my house?" Mr. Mescudi recalled asking Combs. He alleged that Combs told him he wanted to talk and responded, "I'm over here waiting for you." Mr. Mescudi said he arrived at his home to find his security cameras facing the wrong way and unopened Christmas presents for his family rifled through. His dog was also locked in the bathroom and was acting, quote, "jittery and on edge," end quote. He tried to call Combs again, quote, "I wanted to confront him, I wanted to fight him," end quote. He said that he reported the incident to police. Mr. Mescudi also told the court that shortly after his relationship with Ventura ended in January 2012, his car was bombed with a Molotov cocktail. Mr. Mescudi testified that he got a call from his dog sitter who said his dog sitter who said his car was on fire. He told the court that he came home to find a hole cut in the roof of his Porsche and an explosive inside. Prosecutors showed the jury photos of the interior of the car, which was charred. Mr. Muscuddy accuses Combs of being behind the incident, though the mogul denied any involvement at a later meeting. So that's how Kid Cudi is involved in this. So he's alleging that Sean Combs or his team blew up his car because he was involved with Cassie. Those are also like, so even after Cassie's no longer with Diddy, anyone that she's involved with at all gets like under the wrath of Diddy, and he's going to try to do things to them. So it's a huge.
Well, no, I
net.
heard that Cassie was like cheating on him with Kid Cudi. Like they were like together at the same time.
Oh, okay. That could be the case. I don't know, but she was involved with him for sure after they had broken up, but maybe she was involved with him before while she was still with Diddy too.
Yeah, maybe that like the cheating part, I don't know if that was actually true. That was just my understanding. But anyway, yeah, either way, like that's extreme. So
yeah,
extreme reaction.
Yeah, and so this is just kind of like Diddy's MO, right? Like he has a team of people around him helping him. So like beyond the major charges of like the sex trafficking and all of that sort of stuff, like he's also breaking into people's homes, blowing up their cars, like intimidating them. And so it's just crazy the amount of people that also around him that we kind of talked about, like enabled it to happen out of fear for their own life or out of fear of their own financial reasons, right? Like their entire life will be over, and if they're getting paid, it's crazy. Obviously, it's not excusing it, but there are like real legitimate reasons why someone would be afraid to come forward, especially after they participated in it themselves for a certain number of time. So yeah. What's the next thing on my list here? Oh yeah, and then also as part of the trial, so the prosecutors did play surveillance footage that showed Sean Combs attacking Cassie in the Los Angeles hotel hallway, which we mentioned before. They also presented text messages, financial records, and video evidence from hard drives seized during the raids. And so the defense, I think Katie talked about before, the defense is kind of taking making the argument of like, well, Diddy might be a horrible or morally corrupt person who's not like doing the right things, but like that doesn't mean that all of these charges are true. That doesn't mean that these acts weren't consensual. So it's like, yeah, he may have done domestic violence, or he may take a lot of drugs, or he might do a lot of corrupt things, but one thing doesn't equal the other is kind of their argument. So that was kind of their best angle, I guess, to take, because they're not going to sit there and say that he's a stellar person because all of the proof or the evidence is going to show to the contrary. But if they can convince the jury that like just because you're morally corrupt doesn't mean you're capable of all this stuff, I think that's what they're hoping for. Yeah, like Diddy's legal team claims that many of the relationships were consensual and that the digital evidence has been misrepresented. So if convicted, Diddy could face multiple life sentences. The racketeering charge alone carries a mandatory minimum of 15 years. More witnesses are expected to testify, including other former employees and possibly industry insiders. So his businesses have taken a hit. Brands have dropped him. Revolt TV is distancing itself. Ciroc partnerships are frozen. And obviously the public sentiment is not great. So, and it's kind of sort of like it's Diddy on trial, but really it's like putting everything that happens. I mean, no one, I don't think, is surprised that these sort of things happen in Hollywood. I mean, maybe to the extent that it happens, they're shocked by, but I don't think anyone's really necessarily shocked that like something like this would take place. And it is eerily similar to like the Jeff Epstein stuff and all the stuff that came out about that. So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts as a whole about obviously, like I said, the trial's still ongoing, so there's still a lot of developments that are going to come, and we don't know what the outcome's going to be, but what are you guys' thoughts, I guess, on the stuff in the trial so far?
Also, his lawyers tried to get a mistrial, like they put a motion in for a mistrial. I think it had something to do with like fingerprints in Kid Cudi's car that had been destroyed or something. I don't know the full details. Anyway, the judge denied that, so they've already tried to get a mistrial. That was denied. So good.
Yeah. And they also tried to delay the trial too. Like they tried to ask for like more time, which was denied. So I was surprised that the trial is actually happening pretty quickly, because it's like May 2025 and it was only like a year ago when he was officially charged, I think, or maybe even less than that. Maybe it was September 2024. I can't remember exactly when the arrest happened, but it's only been like a year or less than that. So that's pretty quick for a trial of this magnitude. So I guess obviously they thought they wanted more time so that they could have more time to come up with a defense or to maybe to get more witnesses to testify on his behalf or something. But yeah.
I just think that like they have all this video evidence and a lot of like evidence that they took from the house that like you can't deny that he did it. It's like all because you're saying all the stuff they took from the house has evidence of what went on. So I feel like I just feel like he's not going to get away with it. But I mean, I've seen things happen in court that blow my mind, so I don't know. But I just feel like there's too much evidence of him being guilty instead of not guilty.
Yeah, I mean, like the video evidence is hard to dispute. Like that's going to be, I think, the nail in the coffin, I think, is all this video evidence.
Whether you can charge him with racketeering, like you said, is really hard to do. That doesn't matter. What matters is the videos and the people that were involved in those videos is what's probably going to make this case stick, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Katie, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree. And I mean, when it comes down to it, it's like whether these people did it against their will or not is kind of like, how do you prove that? But I think some of the footage in the videos would probably be pretty clear. You can tell if someone's like so messed up on drugs, they don't know what's happening. And I think you can probably tell in a video if someone like doesn't want to be there, but they're being forced to do stuff. So yeah, the video evidence is key for sure.
Yeah, and I think there was also a lot of evidence, like there's probably the defense is using of like text messages between Cassie and him that show, or maybe like from other people who were like, maybe they're like initiating stuff too, where like they're like being very affectionate through texts to him or whatever. But like that doesn't really prove anything because it's like when you're being abused, a lot of like it's kind of a common thread, right? That you might, what is it, like Stockholm syndrome to a certain extent too, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like just because you're like sending maybe flirty text messages doesn't mean that everything's consensual. I just think that's like a loose argument, especially when you can show video to the contrary. So I think the defense is going to try to do that of like, oh, what about when you sent this text at this time to him? Like you weren't being forced to send that. And it's like, well, no, but when you've been abused for so long and you're being forced to do so many other things, you kind of just, I don't know. I just think it's a weak argument to make, but whatever.
Well, yeah, you see that like in like abuse cases all the time where it's like they are abusive, but then they're like really loving afterwards, and then they feel like everything's fine, and then the like person being abused just feel like, okay, maybe that was like the last time, it's not going to happen again, but that just happens over and over again. So yeah, I mean, I feel like yeah, the abuser or the person being abused, like staying there or like being nice or sending these texts really doesn't prove that they're not being abused at all.
And I think that like the reason why this case why the trial happened so quickly is because the prosecutor didn't want the defense to have time to look into things and have a decent defense because they probably know of all the evidence they've already collected that it's pretty hard to deny it. So I think they didn't want to have that extra time for the defense to come up with something.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are they going to come up with? Just like paying people off not to be witnesses, or I don't know. Like what do they need time for? I don't understand what they would even come up with. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think that was part of it because he's applied for bail many times since he was in prison. But I think the reason they didn't grant him bail was they were afraid that he would like intimidate witnesses and stuff and like try to get people not to testify or like pay people off or just whatever, intimidate them. Or even worse, right? Like if he's desperate, who knows what he could do? Someone that powerful, he could get someone to like put a hit out on someone. I mean, obviously, that's just my opinion. I don't know. No evidence of that.
Well, yeah, like Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. Well, apparently, like he allegedly had threatened to kill people already. Yeah. Allegedly, and if that was him that blew up that car, then that's pretty violent. So what's stopping him from blowing up a car, but somebody's actually in it? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then there's another article here from the BBC I wanted to talk about because it does go through like the timeline of the charges. And I just wanted to go over this because it kind of shows you just how many people have have allegations that are very similar. Like, these are people who don't know each other. They didn't know each other at all before, and they all have very similar stories of things. So it's like, you start to question, like, yes, it's all alleged, but like, how many people can come out with the same exact story with the same very similar details before you start to think, maybe there is something going on here. So I'm just going to read directly from the article again, like different chunks of it. So from the BBC article. So in the weeks after settling Cassie's lawsuit, Mr. Combs was accused of sexual assault dating back to 1991 by multiple women. One lawsuit was filed anonymously by a woman who claimed Mr. Combs and another man had coerced her into sex. In a second, Joy Dickerson Neal accused the star of drugging and sexually assaulting her when she was a college student in 1991. She also claimed he filmed the attack and showed it to other people without her consent. A third woman, Liza Gardner, filed court papers accusing Mr. Combs and another man of raping her and her friend more than 30 years ago when she was 16. Miss Gardner also alleged that Mr. Combs had turned violent days after the attack, choking her so hard that she passed out. In the lawsuit, she said Mr. Combs had become irate while trying to track down her friend because he was worried that she would inform, quote, the girl he was with at the time, end quote. The lawsuits all came shortly before the expiration of the New York Adult Survivors Act, which temporarily allowed people who said they had been sexually assaulted to file claims even after the statute of limitations had expired. So, of course, Mr. Combs denies all the allegations, and his spokesperson called this lawsuit's, quote, money grab, end quote. Then, in December 2023, another woman sued, claiming she was sex trafficked and gang raped by Mr. Combs, former Bad Boy Records president Harvey Pierre, and another man in 2003 when she was just 17. In court papers, the woman, known only as Jane Doe, alleged she was given copious amounts of drugs and alcohol before the attack and was left in so much pain that she could barely stand or remember how she got home. Again, he denies that as well. Then in February of 2024, music producer Rodney Jones Jr., who produced 9 tracks for one of Mr. Combs' albums, accused the star of making unwanted sexual contact and forcing him to hire prostitutes and participate in sex acts with them. So that's another allegation that came out. Then in May of 2024, that's when the video of him assaulting Cassie leaked. And then after that, even more came out against him. So there was models that came out saying, he had sexually assaulted them back in 1995 and in 2000. And then in September of 2024, Dawn Richard, who was a former singer in one of his girl groups that he created, Danity Kane, filed a suit against him. She alleged that the musician had sexually assaulted her on multiple occasions, as well as verbally abusing and overworking her. And then again, it goes on and on and on. And then there's there's an 11th lawsuit. It's just so many. And then in October 2024, more than 100 new allegations came forward. A lawyer said more than 100 people plan to sue him for sexual assault, rape, and sexual exploitation. Tony Busby said he was representing 120 people, half of whom were men and 25 of whom were minors, the first time Mr. Combs has been accused of sexually abusing children. One was age 9 at the time of the alleged assault. So keeps going on and on and on. So it's actually crazy the amount of people that have come out against him since that, and people as young as 9 years old. So he's not only allegedly a raper, he's also a pedophile. So just allegedly.
And these people obviously aren't you have some people that say, Diddy probably will say, these guys are making these things up. Well, not if all the stories are the same and the same allegations. If they were made up, everybody would have different stories. Do you know what I mean? But these are all so similar that it has to be believable. Well, it is believable. I believe it. I believe he's a sick person. So
yeah, it's just crazy. So yeah, he's even if he gets acquitted or pardoned or whatever on this federal case, he still has all these civil lawsuits. So all of those allegations, the 120 allegations from these people, they aren't a part of the charges that he's facing or he's on trial for now. Those are all separate, I believe. Maybe those details will come into the trial because it's going to prove the other ones, but he's not on trial. He's not charged with 120 cases that he's facing right now in court. These are all going to be civil suits, I think, that he would have to face after the fact. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. According to CNN, prosecutors have listed that the next 4 witnesses who are going to testify after. So I said that person named Mia, who was that was a fake name. She testified. Now there's 4 others who are going to testify after her. So one of them includes a former assistant to Sean Combs, who is testifying under a pseudonym. Scratch that. My notes are all fucked up. So the next four people who are expected to testify after this person, Mia, one is named Enrique Santos. One is Eddie Garcia, who worked in security at the Intercontinental Hotel. So he, I believe, is a witness to the assault that happened with Cassie, I believe. He's expected to testify under immunity. Then there's a hotel custodian who's going to testify, and then Frank Piazza, who is a forensic video expert. So he's also going to be taking the stand shortly. So he's obviously going to be talking about the video footage, and he's probably going to talk about how that he can authenticate it because he's like a video forensic expert and stuff like that. So the trial is ongoing, and that's kind of where it stands. We don't have a conclusion yet, but there is sort of like a rabbit hole on this case. There was a lot of people talking. Again, this is kind of like conspiracy theory, but one of P. Diddy's ex-wives, Kim Porter, so she died in 2000. She died, not our mother, who has the same name, but she died in 2018, I believe, from pneumonia. It was found that she died of pneumonia, and it was like, now it's being kind of thought of suspicious because of like, what did she know? Maybe like she didn't actually die from that. And then more in the rabbit hole of like, you guys remember Brittany Murphy, the actress? She also died at a young age of pneumonia back in 2009, similar way that Kim Porter died. And there was the whole like sort of thing there was like, people think that because Brittany Murphy at one time was dating Ashton Kutcher, and Ashton Kutcher attended allegedly some of these parties, like maybe there was a thing of like, what did she know? And so maybe like they killed her. It's just kind of weird that they both died of the same thing. But again, that's sort of the conspiratorial.
Her husband died too, didn't he? Of like a couple days later of the same thing?
Or like couple months later or something. Yeah. So there's always been sort of kind of like suspicion around Brittany Murphy's death in 2009. And so I did see like sort of some rabbit holes that kind of go into what did she know potentially, or it's nothing to substantiate.
Why kill them off and not everybody else? Like, it's like so many more people knew about this. It's like just pick and choose a few people. Like, that just seems.
But maybe she was going to come forward,
or maybe maybe she threatened to come forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So who really knows? Like, again, that's kind of like conspiracy theory, and it could have no grounds. But I think there was some kind of scrutiny looking at like his ex-wife and how she had died in 2018, and again, nothing to really substantiate that at all, because they did do an autopsy, I believe, at the time, and her cause of death was determined to be pneumonia. But anyway, so just think of like somebody who's that powerful and really what they could do if they're that desperate to keep everything a secret. Because obviously when it's not a secret, this is what happens. And now he could face life in prison. So he obviously would have been very desperate to keep that information from coming out. So who really knows? But yeah, again, those are all just theories, nothing to substantiate that, and not even allegations, because no one's ever come out and said like this happened. Not even alleging that. It's just like a conspiracy theory out there. So take that with a very large grain of salt. But like, just kind of interesting to think about when you kind of think of how wide P. Diddy's net of people was and connections was. So yeah.
I don't even like.
Oh, go ahead.
I never realized how big of like an icon he actually was, because like Katie, I never really pay attention to who he was or what he did because I didn't really like him. So it's crazy that all these people that he might have had contact with, and like, super, super crazy.
Yeah, and so I'm sure there's a lot of like really high ranking people or very powerful people who were like kind of stressed when all the P. Diddy stuff started happening, like, you know, thinking like, oh God, am I going to be thrown into this, or what's going to come out of stuff that I was involved in? Like, who knows? So it might be far from over too. Who knows what could come out in the. And also there's like people are thinking like, I don't know, like there's a whole thing about like Justin Bieber. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but like people believe that he might have been one of the victims because he was sort of taken under P. Diddy's like wing at the beginning when he was first starting in his career. And there was like kind of, I don't know if you guys saw that like super cringy and uncomfortable video of P. Diddy or of Justin Bieber at P. Diddy's house when he's like 16.
I did see that video. There's also a video of him and Usher. He also took Usher under his wing and like took him in as like a son-like figure because Usher didn't have a family. So there's that.
Yeah. So people, I mean, obviously there's never been anything to substantiate that either, but people think like, could Usher have been one of his victims way back? Could Justin Bieber have been one of his victims? I don't know. It's like the video of Justin Bieber, it's like they're at P. Diddy's house and they're talking about like, I don't know, they're like we're gonna have a crazy like 24-hour, I don't know, it's just super, when you look at it in like retrospect, it's super uncomfortable. So I mean, who knows, it could have been totally innocent, but I don't know. It's, I don't know. If that is true, like, I don't know, Justin Bieber seems kind of fucked up right now. I don't know if you've seen any recent videos of him, but he doesn't seem like he's all there. I mean, I think we know what happens when people who are like abused as when they're young, like what can happen like later in their life and how they can spiral and stuff. So I don't know. Again, that's just kind of a theory, and there's nothing to substantiate that. He's denied it. Justin Bieber came out and denied it and said he was never a victim, but I don't know. Take it with what you will, or a grain of salt, I guess. So, yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our discussion, or kind of that's where we're at in the trial now. Any final thoughts or last words on this case?
I'm curious to see how long this case is going to go. It's probably going to go for like a while with all the pieces of evidence that they have and all the allegations and the list of witnesses. I feel like it's going to go on for like at least a few years, maybe.
No, well, they had said it was only to be 8 weeks. They know how.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, it's not gonna be. Yeah, like it's gonna be over before the end of the summer for sure. Probably by the end of June.
It'll be interesting. It will be interesting to see what it turns out to be, and then we can have an episode about it and talk about it again.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think
I'll be interested to follow like the other, like witnesses for who people that are going to testify come forward, see what they have to say. So I'll be following it.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's a jury trial. It's a jury trial, so like you win or lose the case with the jury, I think, right? And I feel like all you need is one person on that jury who, like, I don't know, was like a big fan of Sean Cole. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they would have vetted that for sure, but like, I don't know. People are like weird. I mean, with OJ, like, you know, people are enamored by celebrities, so it's a lot harder, I think, to put a celebrity away for
they must have to really pick and choose their jury to not be biased against P. Diddy because,
or biased in favor of him.
True, because they don't have to pick somebody who's like lived out in the middle of nowhere and had no TV, had no connection to the real world. Because how would you not have an opinion on him in general?
Yeah, but I feel like even if you were a fan of his and then like this stuff comes out, like there's no way you can just like be like, oh, but I like his music and like not say he's guilty, right? I feel like you still can put that aside and be like, yeah, he did some shitty stuff. You'll still have his music to listen to. Like, that's not going to go away if you're a fan. But you can still be like, yeah, he was a really shitty person, I think. And I feel like, I hope even someone on the jury that was a fan of his could be like, yeah, he's guilty for sure. Because I've had, like, there's celebrities that I liked, and then, like, stuff came out about them and swayed my opinion on them. So I feel like if you're a reasonable, normal person, just because you liked them before doesn't mean you're going to be all for them no matter what they do. So hopefully these jurors are reasonable people.
Yeah, that's true. But people are whack. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith. But I mean, I think like the gravity of the charges, and also people were saying too that like when he was charged, it's like the FBI is involved in this case. Like they really don't charge someone unless they have a ton of evidence. Like they're pretty confident in their case. So I don't think it's really a huge, like, I don't think there's a lot of people thinking like, oh, he could really actually get off, but like crazier things have happened. I don't know. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see the updates as they happen. And we're not going to be doing like, I mean, we might do maybe some updates here and there as it happens, or we'll like post it on our socials and stuff when things come out or when the results, because we're not going to be in this, it's not going to be during our season, right? So, but we'll be updating you one way or the other for sure. But yeah, interested to see kind of how it all plays out. But yeah, that is kind of where our discussion on this episode ends, and kind of the end of our season. Really, this is the finale of the season. So we will be taking another little bit of a break. I don't really know how long. I feel like we never know how long our breaks are until they kind of just however long we feel like we want them to be. But I think we'll be maybe posting more regularly throughout our breaks, like at least on social media with like updates on this case. And also we have the Idaho murder trial, which is happening in August. It starts in August, and that's going to be a big trial. So I mean, I guess our timing of our seasons isn't that convenient for this because we're going to be off while all this is happening. But we can update as we go. But
yeah, we can still jump in with an episode maybe if we feel like we want to do an update episode on that.
Yeah, so that does it for our season. You know, like us, comment. Steph's not muted. So that does it for our season. You can you can listen to our show, leave us a review, comment, follow us on social media, Crime Family Podcast on Instagram, Crime Family Pod on TikTok, Crime Family Podcast on Facebook, and you can email us, crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com, if you have a case suggestion or want to just give us your feedback on the show or any of the cases that we've done so far. Let us know, and you can follow us on YouTube. Just search Crime Family Podcast in YouTube. You'll find us. Subscribe. And yeah, do all of the things. And we'll be back. I don't think our break's going to be as long as it was last time. I think we had like quite a large break. I think it was like 6 months or 7 months, but I don't think we're going to be gone that long. We'll be back in the fall probably, if I had to guess. And yeah, so just keep engaging with us, and we'll be posting on socials all throughout our break. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our season. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of this episode and our full season. And we'll be back, at some point in the future, in a couple of months' time, in the fall for a brand new season. So thanks so much. Until next time, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Have a great summer. Bye.
Bye.